Attention passionate Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the AFC North and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Pittsburgh Steelers' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Pittsburgh Steelers fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your friends and Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Let's get to the news now. I know what you're probably thinking as a Steelers fan. What's the latest buzz in the NFL, especially around our beloved team? Well, this week there's a lot of chatter, a lot of rumors flying around, and some of them are quite intriguing, especially when it comes to the wide receiver market. But what really catches the eye is the ongoing speculation about the possibility, even if just a glimmer for now, of the Steelers showing interest in one of the league's most explosive players. And I'm talking about none other than Tyreek Hill. Now, before we dive into whether the Steelers should pursue such a high-profile move, let's just set the scene. The AFC North is as competitive as ever, with the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns all stacking up talent and making moves to contend. The Steelers, under Mike Tomlin's leadership, have always been about strategic growth, smart acquisitions, and developing their core pieces. But in this league, sometimes one big trade or signing can shift the entire balance of power. So let's get into what's happening, what's being said, and what it could mean for the Steelers' future. Starting with the current landscape, there's a lot of talk about the wide receiver position and whether Pittsburgh might look to upgrade. Now, as many of you know, the Steelers have been building a strong core on offense, but the wide receiver room has sometimes been questioned for its consistency and explosiveness. Enter Tyreek Hill, a player who can change a game in one play. His speed, agility, and ability to stretch defenses are unmatched in the league. But as much as he's a game changer, there are a lot of factors to consider before the Steelers even make a call. First, let's look at the rumors. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN has mentioned that some teams are monitoring the Dolphins' situation with Hill. While there's no concrete evidence that the Steelers are actively pursuing him, the fact that they've done their due diligence, looking into other big-name receivers like Brandon Ayuk and Terry McLaurin, shows that the front office is at least exploring options. And as we know, Omar Khan and his team are always working behind the scenes, trying to find ways to make this roster better and more competitive. But let's pause here for a second. Pause here just for a second. If you want the YouTube algorithm to keep recommending the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now let us continue with the big reveal. Now, as much as the idea of adding a player like Hill sounds tempting, especially given his ability to turn any game around with his speed, there are significant hurdles. First, his contract, at around $7 million in 2023, would be a massive cap hit for the Steelers, who already have to manage a tight salary cap. Plus, Hill is 31 years old and coming off his first season since 2019, where he didn't reach 0 yards. That's not to say he isn't still a top-tier receiver, but it does raise questions about longevity and whether the investment makes sense long-term. And then there's the legal baggage. Hill has had some off-field issues that can't be ignored. The Steelers, under Mike Tomlin, have built a culture of toughness, discipline, and integrity, and bringing in a player with some controversy might be a risk that doesn't align with that philosophy. Another aspect that's worth mentioning is the recent tension in Miami. Reports from sources like ESPN highlight how the Dolphins' locker room has been turbulent at times, with head coach Mike McDaniel even describing the environment as great to be another day closer to death. That's a pretty stark statement, and it makes you wonder if the Dolphins organization is fully committed to keeping Hill amid all the drama. If Miami is indeed open to trading him, it could be a window for the Steelers or other teams to make a move. But even then, the cost, draft picks, cap space, and potential locker room impact must be carefully evaluated. The Steelers, historically, are cautious when it comes to big trades, especially for players with high salary demands and baggage. They prefer to build through the draft and develop their existing talent, which has served them well over the years. Now, let's talk about the player himself. If the Steelers did decide to pursue Hill, it could instantly elevate their offensive attack. Imagine lining up Hill opposite George Pickens, how defenses would have to respect the deep ball and the quickness of both players. That pairing could unlock a new dimension of the Steelers' offense, making them more unpredictable and explosive. But at what cost? The draft capital needed, the salary cap implications, and the team chemistry are all factors that weigh heavily in this decision. And honestly, given the current roster and the team's philosophy, it might be more prudent for Omar Khan to look elsewhere. Perhaps to a more affordable, less controversial receiver, or even to developing the young guys they already have. Another point to consider is the Steelers' recent draft strategy and their focus on building a sustainable, championship-caliber roster. They've shown a preference for smart, strategic moves rather than splashy signings. Their recent draft picks have been about adding depth, versatility, and youth. In that sense, maybe the front office is more inclined to develop their current receivers and strengthen the offensive line to give Kenny Pickett more protection and targets. That way, they can maximize their existing assets without throwing everything at a high-profile trade that might not fit their long-term plan. And speaking of long-term plans, the Steelers' window of contention is as strong as ever. With a talented quarterback like Kenny Pickett still on his rookie deal, they have the financial flexibility to make moves, if they choose to. But they also need to be smart. They've made it clear they want to build a team that can sustain success over multiple seasons, not just chase short-term glory. That's why adding a player like Hill, with his age and baggage, might not align with their philosophy. Instead, they might focus on developing their current core, George Pickens, Calvin Austin, and others, and supplement that with strategic free agent signings or draft picks. Now, let's take a quick look at what the future might hold. The Steelers are entering this season with high expectations, especially after a solid offseason of adding pieces like Jalen Ramsey, who has bought into the culture instilled by Mike Tomlin. Ramsey's attitude, work ethic, and toughness fit perfectly with what the Steelers are all about. His emphasis on conditioning, physicality, and playing with a chip on his shoulder mirrors the team's identity. If Ramsey can bring that same mentality to the defense, it could elevate the entire unit and help cover up some of the offensive questions. The defense, after all, has been a cornerstone for Pittsburgh, and with Watt coming into his age 31 season, the team is counting on him to continue being a disruptive force. His ability to move around and adapt, like ESPN's Brooke Pryor mentioned, means the Steelers are exploring new packages and schemes that could keep Watt fresh and effective. Speaking of Watt, the hype around his transformation this offseason is real. He's showing a willingness to experiment with different roles and responsibilities, which could pay huge dividends during the season. His versatility will be crucial, especially if he can add more power to his game as he ages, complementing his quickness and explosiveness. Watt's impact on the Steelers' defense cannot be overstated. He's the kind of player who can change the course of a game with a single play, and his leadership is vital for the entire unit. If he can stay healthy and continue to evolve, the Steelers' defense could once again be one of the best in the league. But let's not forget the other side of the ball. The Steelers' offense has been working hard in the offseason, and there's a lot of optimism around Kenny Pickett. He's entering his second year, and the coaching staff is doing everything possible to give him the tools he needs to succeed. The offensive line has been reshaped, and the young receivers are gaining experience. But to truly unlock the potential of their offense, they need a reliable deep threat, someone who can stretch the field and keep defenses honest. That's where the allure of a player like Hill comes in. His ability to make big plays can open up everything underneath and create more scoring opportunities. However, as we've discussed, the cost and risks are significant, and the Steelers' front office might prefer to invest in the players they already have or find value in free agency or the draft. So where does that leave us? Well, for now, the rumors about Pittsburgh's interest in Tyreek Hill are just that, rumors. But they're worth monitoring because in the NFL, surprises happen all the time. The Steelers are known for their patience and strategic thinking. They're not the team to make reckless moves, but they're also not afraid to pounce when the opportunity aligns with their long-term goals. If the Dolphins decide to part ways with Hill, it could be a scenario where Pittsburgh makes a calculated move, but only if it makes sense financially and culturally. Otherwise, they'll continue to develop their current roster, focus on their strengths, and aim for another deep playoff run. And let me tell you, Pittsburgh fans, this season is shaping up to be exciting. With the defense led by Watt, the addition of Ramsey bringing toughness, and Kenny Pickett looking to take that next step, the Steelers are positioning themselves for a serious challenge in the AFC North and beyond. The division is tough, no doubt, but Pittsburgh has always thrived in these competitive environments by playing smart, disciplined football. Whether or not they pursue a big-name receiver like Hill, one thing is certain. They're always planning their next move, always trying to stay one step ahead of the competition. And as fans, we should be excited about the possibilities, about the growth, and about the relentless pursuit of excellence that defines the Steelers. So, keep your eyes peeled, stay tuned for more updates, and as always, stay passionate, Steelers Nation. This season could bring surprises, breakthroughs, and maybe even that elusive Super Bowl title we all dream about. Thanks for being with me today, and remember, I'll be back soon with even more Steelers news, insights, and analysis. Until then, let's keep supporting our team, believing in what they can achieve, and never losing sight of the pride that comes with being part of Steelers Nation. Now, go Steelers!